Please welcome John Drinkard.
Hi, everybody. My name is John Drinkard, and I'm a mechanical engineer as well as an administrator here at Cubic. And I'm going to be talking today about managing product design maturity and how Cubic does this using Aras Innovator. I'd ask that you put any questions that you might have into the chat or the Q&A, and I'll get to those at the end of the presentation. Let's see. The agenda today that I'm going to go through, I want to give a brief background on Cubic and as well as our PLM journey. I also want to discuss kind of the core of my topic, which is ECO customization and how we were able to use that customization to really meet some of Cubic's challenges that kind of were somewhat unique in that what we were trying to implement. I'll also go into, towards the end, a little bit about ECO data analytics and how we use SAP HANA and Tableau to give us some really good actionable data. Okay, so a little bit about Cubic. We are a global organization founded in 1951 in San Diego, California. We are currently still in San Diego, but we have locations across the US as well as internationally in places such as the UK, New Zealand, Australia, Singapore, and Mexico. And we also have customers in over 60 countries worldwide. Two primary divisions, Cubic Transportation Systems and Cubic Mission and Performance Solutions. Cubic Transportation Systems basically focuses on mass transit revenue, ride fare tolling, and mobile suites. Cubic Mission and Performance Solutions provides secure comms, secure networking, C4 ISR, as well as next generation training and simulation. In the slide, you can kind of see a footprint of our Aras ecosystem. In the center there, you'll notice that we have our system hosted in the Azure Gov Cloud. We also have quite a few integrations with several different platforms and tools that I'll touch on a little bit here, but not too much. Probably the most important is our integration to SAP. You'll notice that this allows us to perform kind of an automated publish of our design data from PLM into the SAP ERP system. That's where we utilize our project management tools, resource allocation, and BOM and material management. We also have integration with Active Directory that allows us to provide user authentication as well as user account generation. And then we have several CAD connectors hosted through the XPLM software. So Altium for our circuit board designers, SolidWorks, AutoCAD, and also Creo, which you might know better as Pro-E. These are all the tools that we currently have integrated to our Aras PLM system. And it really gives our designers the flexibility to use the different tool sets that might best do the job for them. Okay. Our PLM journey, we selected Aras over several competing bids in the second quarter of 2018. In July 2019, we had our U.S. defense-based units roll out, and that was followed up in December of 2019 by our global rollout to our transportation business units, as well as our non-U.S. defense units. Since then, we've had several releases that have provided a number of key enhancements to our system, including our MCAD and ECAD connectors. And that brings us to today, where we are preparing to go transition to upgrading to Innovator 12. We're currently on Innovator 11. And that's scheduled to take place at the end of May. So with that, a little bit of background, I'm going to transition into the primary topic today, and that's how we were really able to take advantage of the kind of inherent flexibility of the Aras system to meet some of the challenges that Cubic faced. And these are somewhat unique. Cubic is a highly acquisitive company. We're constantly purchasing smaller business units that meet our portfolio needs. And in a lot of our core business units prior to our initial go live with Aras, there was no existing PLM solution. So we had kind of this hodgepodge of systems that were coupled together in a way that worked, but had no real consistency across the board. That in turn led to some other challenges. We had different part numbering schemes, different revision schemes that all had to be integrated into one system. In addition to that, there were export compliance concerns. We were bringing on board commercial units and international business units, and they were going to share the same platform with our U.S. defense systems. And so how were we going to do that while maintaining our EAR and ITAR requirements? And as I mentioned, Cubic is a highly acquisitive company, and so the issues that we had were only getting worse. We were bringing more companies in, more systems in, and all those systems had to be integrated under our IT management. We had to integrate new data vaults, had to bring in new revisioning schemes. So the problem was not going away, and in fact, it was growing. But really, the primary challenge that we faced was kind of the diverse nature of Cubic's business units. We have both contract-driven business units, which they're highly iterative design processes. They're bringing multiple customer reviews into the equation, and it's a much slower paced, very methodical design process. But we also have some agile, quick to market companies who rely on speed and offer their products straight to the market. And so the challenge for us was how to bring these diverse business units with different design processes and different business models under the umbrella of the same platform, sharing the same workflows, and how would we make that work so that it provided the companies or the business units rather, with the flexibility to still accomplish their market objectives. Okay, Cubic was able to offer some really innovative, Aras was able to provide some really innovative solutions that was able to meet these goals. And one of the key innovations that they offered us was the ability to offer multiple ECO workflows. These are really sub-workflows under the main ECO workflow, and each one corresponds to a different design maturity: proposal, InDesign, prototype, low-rate initial production, and then full-scale production. And each one of these ECO workflows, as you progress, increases in levels of review. So there are more reviews, more stringent approval requirements for each one. And having these multiple workflows provided us the flexibility to allow the business units to decide which ones they were going to use. Some of our quicker to market companies may use only the InDesign workflow and progress straight from there into the production ECO workflow. And that's all they need. Some of our contract-driven companies, such as our commercial transportation units, some of their larger projects, and then especially our defense side, they may use all 5 workflows. They'll start with the end proposal and increase all the way up to production. The beauty of that system is that it really gives them the flexibility to make that call, and they have that authority to, as a business unit, decide which of these workflows they want to incorporate. This is an overview of our main ECO workflow, and as you can see, there are several different sub-workflows within it, and those correspond to the design maturities that I was discussing. And you can see that as you start off with proposal, you work your way down through InDesign, prototype, work in production. We also have a couple other workflows that are not necessarily related to design product maturity, but for some more specific cases, I won't really get much further into that. But as I mentioned, the production workflow is our most stringent, requires the most levels of review and approval. And this is the actual workflow map for that ECO branch. So we have several different activities that we incorporate into here. And again, this is our most stringent level of review and approval. We have a triage activity where teams are reviewing the ECO for correctness, applicability, impact, things of that nature. There's also a planning activity where the project engineer will review the ECO to make sure that the scope is accomplished and that the change is accurate. Impact review, this can pull in other affected projects if necessary, quality and safety reviews if those are flagged. And then finally, we have the EDR start and end activity. I'm going to get into this a little bit more further down in the presentation. This is essentially a sub-workflow of a sub-workflow. This is where changes are made and reviewed by the project team and also our change management teams. This is sort of like I said, a more granular sub-workflow where the technical details of the change are focused on. We also have a customer review. This gives any customers optional ability to review the scope of the change and after it's been made and to approve it. And then finally, we have our integration to SAP, the published SAP activity. This is where change management groups can verify that the data is published directly into SAP from PLM. Okay. With that, I'll go ahead and discuss a couple of our activities, and what I really want to focus on are the dynamic workflow assignments. This was really important for us because we, as I mentioned, have many different business units sharing the same platform. And so we really needed to have this ability to dynamically assign workflow reviews and approvals based on the applicable business unit, as well as design activity, and even an engineering discipline. And Aras was able to really help us accomplish that using these dynamic workflow assignments. For example, the triage groups, this is another area where we have these differences in our business units and how they operate and their design philosophies. Some want a full review with multiple triage teams. That would be an example that I have shown here. You have 3 different triage teams, one for CM, one for our design engineering, and one for our manufacturing engineering. Some of our smaller business units may not have that level of review, and they may have 1 or 2 individuals who might be reviewing change. And so we provide the flexibility with this option to have a single triage team or to have multiple. And I'll get into a little bit about how that's set up within our system. You can see that each ECO is assigned a project. You can see that red box there with the PLM test project. And then each project is assigned a business unit. We have triage group configurations set up, and we can add or remove these as needed. And essentially, each business unit has to have at least one. They can have multiple if they want. In this example, we have our commercial transportation business unit here in San Diego, and they've set up 3 different triage teams. And so they have 3 configurations for their business unit, one for CM, manufacturing, and design engineering. This allows those individual triage teams to be pulled into the ECO workflow under the triage group, and really gives our teams a lot of flexibility in who gets pulled into that sign-off. We also have dynamic workflow assignments based on planning. Again, each ECO is assigned a project. Each project has a project team, and each project team has a project engineer. There can be multiple project engineers, but only one vote is required. And that's what gets pulled into that planning activity that you see. And then I mentioned this earlier. This is our engineering design review sub-workflow. This is really a sub-workflow of a sub-workflow, and it's a more granular level of analysis of the changes that are being made under the ECO or the parts that are being released. This is where the actual design engineers and designers using the CAD software tools are going to be making their changes to the drawings or models, uploading that data into PLM, and then it's going to be reviewed and improved by the project team itself. We'll also have export compliance reviews that I'll get to in a minute here. Kind of another example of that dynamic workflow assignment is our EDR grouping. Each of our parts, CAD documents and documents, has 2 properties that we've assigned to them: engineering discipline, which could be mechanical, electrical, or software, and then also a lab office code. These lab office codes essentially correspond to our different business units. And each EDR is grouped by those 2 properties. The purpose of that is to allow a tailored review and approval based on the actual project team members and their assigned engineering discipline. For example, there on the right, you can see that we have 2 parts that are mechanical and have a lab office code of 001. And so that would be 1 EDR generated under this parent ECO. You also have a couple of electrical parts, same lab office code, but because they have a different engineering discipline, they'll be grouped onto a second EDR. And then finally, you have 2 software parts also with a different lab office. And so that would be a 3rd EDR. All 3 EDRs are under the parent ECO. All 3 EDRs have to be approved before the ECO can be approved. This allows us, like I said, to get those tailored reviews and approvals based on the actual business unit and engineering disciplines that really have that technical knowledge and the ability to properly review and approve changes made to our design data. We have a couple of optional activities here under EDR after the EDR draft changes activity. You notice that the engineer has the option to vote to collaboration or to peer review or to both. The collaboration activity is basically a buy-in that other project team engineers can get in, where they also get a vote, and they can also review the design data and assist in making changes to it. The peer review also pulls in project team members, and they can all have a vote on whether or not they agree with the scope of the changes and the correctness of the change. And then finally, you have a design authority review, which is non-optional. Every EDR has to go through a design authority review. This is where the project engineer and change management groups are assigned. Again, some more dynamic workflow assignments. And they each get a 50-50 vote on approving that EDR. And then there's a optional activity here called the GTC review. This is our global trade and compliance team. Each CAD document and document contains our design data is going to have that GTC reviewed or on approved exemption list checkbox that you see there. If every item on the EDR is checked with there and it's already been through a review process, then that activity is no longer required and the EDR will go straight into pending closure. If that's not the case and there are items that have not been flagged for review, that activity will be triggered. Global trade and compliance will be assigned a vote. And they'll go through each of the design data artifacts and basically verify export compliance. They'll assign a classification such as EAR or ITAR, or decide that it's uncontrolled before approving. Again, items that have been previously reviewed and classified are exempt, and so this GTC review is a optional activity that gets triggered automatically by the workflow. With that, I want to get into another topic that I think is really neat and kind of something that we've only integrated in the last few months. This is ECO data analytics. We utilized SAP HANA in conjunction with Tableau dashboards to provide some really good actionable data points that our executive management team as well as our project management teams can review. A few of those. We have a released ECO report, an active ECO tracking report. We can look at our cycle time averages. We can look at our ECO trending. And this is all information that is fed back to our project management teams as well as our executive management teams to get a really clear picture of, why we're generating ECOs, how many are being generated, and how we're doing in terms of meeting our service level agreements for closing out the different activities that are assigned to these ECOs. And how efficient we are in making these changes. This is a screenshot I had of our released ECO report. This shows basically the number of ECOs released across all our business units over a given time period. In this case, it's shown by week. It is filterable by each individual business unit as well as time period. And you can even change it to show, instead of the number of ECOs, you can show the number of released items, such as part records, CAD documents, and documents. Another really good report that we have are our cycle time averages. This is showing the average number of days it takes per ECO release. And you can see that we are trending in the right direction there. As our project teams become more comfortable with the system and become more adept at it, we're also focusing on meeting these cycle time averages and bringing them down. We have agreed upon service level agreements in terms of each business unit and each reviewer and how many days it would take them to, or should take them to review. And our focus has been on bringing those times down without sacrificing quality, of course. We also have a ECO trending report. This shows the number of ECOs created versus released, and then also shows the ECOs that are still in an active state. We tie SAP HANA into the actual sign-offs on the ECO workflow. Those are the data points it uses to generate these analytics. So you can see that, again, we're working to stabilize that time in between ECO creation and ECO release. And that's really kind of been the case over the last 4 months. You can see that since January, we've really, for the most part, reached kind of a stable state that we're comfortable with and which we can work on improving on from there. So kind of to wrap it up a little bit, Cubic, as I mentioned, had quite a few challenges kind of posed by our diverse array of business units. Integrating them into a single shared PLM system presented several subsequent challenges, including global trade and compliance requirements, integrating everybody into the same part number and revisioning schemes, accomplishing, the key of allowing that flexibility with our product design, maturity management, and allowing our companies to operate in the ways that suit them best. The Aras solution really helped to provide the solutions to those. We were able to integrate all of Cubic's units on one platform, standardized our part numbering revision schemes. We were able to segregate our data using access controls that prevented any breach of export compliance requirements. And again, it gave us that flexibility in product design maturity management that was really key in making this work for us. With that, I kind of wrapped up a little bit early here. But again, I would my contact information is there at the top. I'd be happy to meet afterwards or discuss further any questions you might have had on this presentation, or show you any things that you might want to see in that regard. With that, I'll go ahead and wrap up and answer any questions we might have there. David, yes, our ECO cycle time data is extracted from Innovator. That's using the ECO sign-offs that SAP HANA pulls. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody's time. And again, if there are any further questions, feel free to reach out to my contact information there at the top. And with that, I'll go ahead and wrap it up and have a good day.